So Bugaya is in the beautiful Upper Galilee near Rami, near Tarshiha, just a mile and a half maybe from Suhmata and Deir al-Asi, two destroyed villages in 1948 during the Nakba. Bukaya is also famous for its water, lush and green mountains, springs everywhere, many of them gushing everywhere. The big one, the main one, is Ain al-Balad, which is the village, in the village square where we think the village was built around it maybe 5,000 years ago, according to archaeologists. It's also famous for at least 120, if not more, published writers and poets. Ameer and I went to the same elementary school where we both got our education from the late father, the principal of the school, Abu Firas, Hanna Makhoul. We departed. I went to university and then America, theater and art, and Ameer went on his into fighting for human rights, and his political career ended up also in university, what we call university, which is Israeli prison. And so with this long introduction for Ameer, we would love to hear from him. So I give you, Ameer, the virtual platform and the mic to start your talk, and then we'll take your questions after Ameer is done. So Ameer, tfaddal, welcome.
Thank you so much, Hanna. It's my pleasure to meet you all, but it's also a special pleasure to meet Hanna. Some kind of reunion, geographical, family, school, everything.
Yes.
And the nature, of course, which we both love. I believe that people who are far away geographically, they remember every piece of the place, which is the character of the people. So thank you so much. I was offered a hard task, in fact, by Hanna and to speak about what I decide to speak about. And it makes things more difficult for me, or from where to begin. And I will leave the prison now. I will leave the we'll speak about later. I will speak about also the different points also later. When I want to ask to speak about Palestine, about Palestinians, citizens of Israel, etc., I prefer to speak about pieces of the big picture, not speak about the whole picture, because it's a little bit matter of known matter, but the details are in these pieces. They could give a scope how to look to the whole picture. In the last year, all of us were witness to three important steps that occurred since May 2020 till now, 21 till now. One of them was the first one was the decision of the Human Rights Council to decide to send or to authorize investigation committee about the crimes, war crimes in Palestine, and they decide to investigate the whole the war crimes in the whole Palestine, includes Palestinians inside Israel, or what we call Palestinians apartheid, which was a new relatively approach. It's not the first time, but it was a very clear point that they made. The other report was, which is important thing, it's the Human Rights Watch report about the Israeli war crimes, about the apartheid regime, about the discriminatory regime, which are also new developments that give us tools as victims, not because we are Palestinians, but we are victims of unjust that occurred by the Israeli occupation, by the Israeli state, and by the international community in general, which is still we are victims of injustice in Palestine. But I will speak more about the Amnesty International report, in fact, which have been published in the beginning of this month, which is, I don't look to it as one more report. It's a landmark that we have to look to it as a landmark, that it's a big change of the approach of the international community, as Amnesty International is very influential, and it's not only on solidarity movement, not only in NGOs, but also in its governments are listening to it. I think it's a new language, it's a new narrative, it's a new approach. I will not speak about or represent the report. Everybody could read it in different languages. But I will speak about some points that are what's new, what's unique in this report. I think that in general, Israel is trying to introduce all time itself as different entities, like Israel in the West Bank as occupators and sometimes not occupator, Israel in Gaza, which is free of Gaza now. Israel is out of Gaza, and Israel not responsible about the refugees problem. And the Palestinians in Israel are considered, which are 1.8 million Palestinians, which are considered as internal Israeli matter, not part of the Palestinian cause. What Amnesty tried to, or report did, is that all are included in one inclusive regime. It's not a matter that Israel is has a policy toward Palestinians in Israel, or toward Palestinians in West Bank, or toward Palestinians in Gaza or in Jerusalem, or refugees, but it's to rethink or to begin thinking about non-fragmented point of view. It means that one regime, one entity, which is Israel, responsible about the whole Palestinian cause and all aspects of Palestinians today, although the different legal status of Palestinians today, but they are all part of the same decision makers, of the same policy makers, of the same strategy, of the same ideology, which give us different point of view to look sometimes about the picture of the puzzle, like to take it piece by piece, we will not see anything. Sometimes we have more pieces, we can see some part of the picture, but it's not sure that it's the picture. But when we put the whole puzzles in the same place that they should be, we can see the whole picture, which is the opposite, to oppose the imposing point of view that Israel want us to look to it as different arms of the system. We couldn't see the system. We are not allowed to see the system. It's like some kind of blinding or social or political blinding, to see just part of the Israeli system, not to see the system itself. To see the outcomes of that, not to see the how the policy is made. Like if I take two examples which are occurred very in the last weeks, and in fact they are occurred most of the time. But if I take the Naqab what's called the Negev area, where are about 400,000 Palestinians are living there in their original villages, in their places, in their Bedouin Palestinians, and in their lands. And they are subject of uprooted, of ethnic cleansing. And ethnic cleansing is done by so-called afforestation of pine and cypress, and in order to expel the Palestinians from their lands, not for the nature. So Israel is planting the land by in the north of the Naqab, north center of the Naqab area, which is the rainy area, and which are the fertile lands, which can give a lot, which are very useful for agriculture. And to expel the Palestinians from these lands and to settle Jewish communities. The last week, 2 days ago, the Ben Gvir from the successor of Kahana, Ameer Kahana in the Knesset today, tried to establish a settlement in that area. And to call it Paula, which is the wife of Ben Gurion, as Ben Gurion, the first Israeli prime minister, used to speak about the Naqab as the gate of Israel, as the most important, one of the most important areas. But on the other hand, we can see the so-called militia of the settler, Israeli settler militias in the West Bank, which are uprooting olive trees, which are destroying the Palestinian life at all, as militias, as like it's very, even the Israeli media began to speak about the new Israeli Ku Klux Klan groups, which are attacking Palestinians, in their innocent Palestinians, in their homes, in their lands, in their fields, by very violent way, and even attacking the Israeli groups who are trying to give to make solidarity with this and support the Palestinians in their to protect them from these groups. So by using the both aspects of afforestation and in the Naqab and the uprooting of trees in the West Bank, there are, if we look to that in the new approach of amnesty, we can see that in both sides, both counter acts are supporting and they are outcome of the same ideology of ethnic cleansing of the community, to uproot the Palestinians from their lands, from their place, and to settle these places. And to the government of Israel, of course, are supporting that. I believe that this government is, although it's it's not a government of change or political change. It's not a government of a new horizon. It's government which is more stuck, even more stuck to the matter of settlements, of ethnic cleansing than Netanyahu government. Although this government is enjoyed the legitimization of the anti-occupation group such as Meretz, and they are also enjoy the legitimization of United Arab List of the Islamic part of the Islamic movement of Israel, which are supporting this government. And Israel are using these groups to confront now, or to respond to the amnesty report, to speak that the last day there was a maximizing of the media maximizing of Abbas Mansour, which he is leader of the Arab United List, to which he rejects or refused to consider Israel as apartheid state. Nobody asked him to do so, and it's not a matter that he could. He want to justify his joining this coalition of the government, but in fact he is supporting the coalition. He's part of the coalition, but sure he will never be, or any Palestinian will never be, part of the decision making of Israel, of the policy making of Israel. You could be part of the coalition, and in very pragmatic point of view of part of this Islamic movement, that they are supporting Israel as a Jewish state, and they are giving up with that nature of Israel. But they say that we will recognize that, but we will get some benefits, although we will disconnect ourselves from the Palestinian cause. But this is a new approach, which is it's not accepted for the Palestinian community in general. It's not the way of Palestinian community inside Israel. I believe that today we are all Palestinians in everywhere are community at risk and people at risk. It's not a matter of not only occupation, like to see tanks and artillery soldiers and invasion by day, but it's a matter, they are subject of colonial approach, which is by economical control, daily life control, employment control, and the Israelis are controlling every Palestinian life, how to live and how to, and any Palestinian right considered, even in personal right, considered as a privilege, not as a right by the Israeli forces. And every Palestinian should ask Israel to give him this benefit, or so-called benefit and privilege. But in fact, these are a policy of not only occupation, it's much more policy of colonialism, which became very deep in the Palestinian life everywhere. I think that Palestinians in Israel, I will speak about a little more, because the approach of the current government, especially after May 2021, with the uprising in Sheikh Jarrah and Gaza and inside the Green Line, Palestinians were considered, Palestinian citizens of Israel, as a new front and as an enemy by the Israeli media, by the Israeli government, and by the Israeli justice or legal approach, by the court of Israel. And we are the last weeks, there is a big noise about Pegasus, about NSO, this how to that very much people were subject of control of the Israeli Shabak, the Israeli intelligence services. In fact, for Palestinian citizens of Israel, Pegasus or program or NSO, this company, it doesn't make any sense, because any Palestinian felt himself or herself since 1948 as under total control of Israel, under total control and under total involvement in his or her personal life, in their daily life. If a Palestinian was supposed to be a teacher, he has to get the approval of the Shabak. If Palestinian want to work as in a water company, that the same, then building everywhere, and also to leave to move from place to place. This is not new for Palestinians. I remember in my court in the sentence in 2010, the Israeli attorney introduced to the court 33,000 phone calls with me and about me, that they to make the evidence. When the Sheikh Raed Salah, the Islamic movement leader, the other Islamic movement, not this in the coalition, that was sentenced, the Attorney General introduced to the court 100,000 telephone calls and messages about Sheikh Raed Salah. So that means that we are totally under this control, under this policy of intelligence, which are the major leading structure of the Israeli policy toward Palestinian citizens of Israel. In the last May, since now, we Palestinians inside Israel, we feel that we are, maybe because we are the most well-organized group within the Palestinian people, much more the West Bank and Gaza, where the division between Hamas and Fatah would influence the whole structure. And of course, much more the refugees, which are in very demonization situation. And we are politically and social, little bit, we have this kind of representative bodies, and we are well organized a little bit. So the Israeli approach now is to fragment us, to fragment the Palestinians, and to in social manners, such as to lead or to neglect any real policy to stop the crime, for example, social crime, or the weapons, which has become a very huge economy of killing inside. It's a mafia, the real mafia that have been raised. It has been expelled from the Israeli cities, from Lid, the Jewish side, to the Arab side, from the Ramle, from Netanya, from Tel Aviv, to the Arab villages and towns around the country. So today we are victims of that. We are busy today. Our agenda have been changed as Palestinians, from dealing with Palestinian rights to protect our daily life, which is part of the Israeli policy. It's not a matter of neglection that they have no policy. It's a policy to give us this feeling that we are a matter of or subject of to feel not safe and to protect ourselves day by day, and we every day, if we have to listen to the radio in the morning, who was killed, where, who was shooted, where, and this is media that it's become matter of day by day. It's not even like 1 week that we are free of that. I look to that as Israeli policy, that to put us in this exhausting us as Palestinians, and to make us aware just for our daily life, not our political horizon, not our political hopes, not our political life, and not to support, of course, our people. Since May, the last year, we became, especially in the mixed cities or historical cities like Haifa, Akka, Lid, Ramle, Jaffa, and Bir al-Sabah. We became subject of attacks by militias, by mob, that they were like some kind of division of work between them and the Israeli police. When the Israeli police is not able to stop peaceful demonstrations or protests of the Palestinians, they use these militias as in a functional manner to terrorize the Palestinians in Israel. And many attacks, bloody attacks that have been done without to even to arrest people, without to arrest the aggressors, without to bring them to the court. While until today, Palestinian, especially young men and women, in the from 16 years or sometimes from 11 years till 20s, they are subject of political harassment, political attacks by the Shabak. In the last weeks even, there is a new attack to send to everybody, like I got one of them. That a message from the Israeli Shabak, they enter the whole phones of the Palestinians, and to send them a threat that you was in this demonstration. We are not happy with that. This is enough. Or you are in touch with these people and with this man or woman, and we consider them as terrorists. And nobody knows who is that. And also to be subject of arrest, especially for young women in the last weeks. And this was why, and we thought about why to send young women to investigate and to harass young women, Palestinian women. It was also an attempt to make the families afraid, or to use the family honor, what's they called, which Palestinians are free of that now, at least mostly of the Palestinian. But it's an approach to use the social structure to make a pressure on women not to take part. In fact, in these movements of young men and the women, there is a new phenomenon that the most of the leaders are women, in fact, young women. Students, not students, but they are very active and they are very involved. So I think that this is the approach become very aggressive by the state, by the police, by the Shabak, and this is to consider it as an enemy and to bring us into to confront or to be attacked by the Israeli state. This is a matter that will bring me back to the Amnesty report. That I was in Durban conference, in the World Conference Against Racism in 2001, a leading figure there. And we raised the slogan of Israel apartheid and Zionism is racism. Amnesty, the same as Human Rights Watch, they opposed that approach at that time. But today, after they make their reports, after the Israeli practices were more clear, after the law of the Jewish state law and the basic law, and they changed their approach, which is very encouraging, because for the victims, for Palestinians, to see that there is a change on around the world. In the government, there is no change in the level of governments. But in the level of at least the credible human rights worldwide organizations such as Amnesty, it was very important in the moral level that there is accumulation of achievements, that there is that our struggle is not worthless. It's very important to see that. In addition to the solidarity activities, solidarity work everywhere, and solidarity movement that they are doing a lot of work. I think that this will give us a tool that how to deal with Israel as it is in the essence of Israel, not only the outcomes of each policy in each point in general. I want to speak a little about the prisoners, not in general, but to connect with that between the play, the Shroud Maker, yeah. And in fact, I was 9 years. It was in the prisons to be 9 years is to see. First of all, it's the only place that Palestinian people can see itself as a people, because we are in the same place. We couldn't be in the same place with the people from Gaza today. We couldn't be in the same place with the refugees. We couldn't be in the same place if the West Bank became not a West Bank. It's a matter of the wall, where the apartheid wall passed. Because the people from the West Bank, they don't know Jerusalem. They don't know, they haven't seen or touched the sea. There is a generation of Palestinians. They don't know what's that sea. They can learn about that, but they didn't touch it in their life. And they are a generation of the wall, after the wall. And it's not a matter of only construction of the wall. It's a matter of the construction of the minds of the people, to feel that their horizon is the wall. Even no Palestine, no West Bank today. They couldn't see, they couldn't touch. But it was also a matter to see that it was for me difficult to see the play, in fact. It was very painful. Although it's comedy in the end, dark comedy. But why it was? Because in every piece of the story, I saw different prisoners. I saw their mothers. I saw the mother of Nasser Abu Hamid, for example, today, which is in critical health situations. He is suffering of cancer in prison. He is life sentence prisoner. And another 4 brothers of him are the same. And one of the other brother have been killed by the Israeli army before about 15 years, 16 years. And their mother wanted to see them. She knows the geography of Palestine by the prisons only. She knows Palestine just by the maps of the prisons, sometimes in the north, sometimes in Asqalan, sometimes in the Naqab, sometimes in the Gilboa, in the north. And she has to make all these roads all her life just to see her sons for 45 minutes and to spend 1 day of travel and 1 day of Via Dolorosa. Of to feel how of torturing her soul. And her son now is in very critical situation. He could be died anytime. The same I can see Kamal Abu Wa'ir, which has passed away in the prison last year, very close friend, which I used to ask. He asked me all the time to get help because of my Hebrew, and to write letters about to ask for treatment, health treatment. At the end, he got no treatment and he was died of cancer. The same with Sami Abu Diak. And these are, so the play was very strong one and very successful one in its message. But in fact, the reality is much painful. The reality is much painful, very much painful. And the real daily life of Palestinians, of families, of prisoners, of people who have no hope, and they want to keep even the illusion as instead of hope sometimes, in order to be able to suffer and to steadfast in the real life of prison. The prisoners are now community also much more at risk from all Palestinians, because there is a matter of revenge after the tunnel of the escape of the 6 prisoners from the Gilboa prison in the north. 405,000 Palestinian prisoners, about 35 women prisoners, female prisoners, and about approximately 400 who are in very bad health situations and outcome of health treatment. And there are about approximately 500 or 400 which are administrative arrested people by administrative orders, not by court. So it's the daily life of Palestinians. But in fact, many Palestinians who are outside of prison say that the whole Palestinians are in prison, even who are outside of the prison. Gaza is the biggest prison. The West Bank became a prison by the wall, by the checkpoints, by the control, the daily control, by the settlements, by the settlers, by the militias of the settlers, and the same inside Israel to communicate. Maybe the new media tools give us the approach to communicate everywhere, and more links, virtual links between Palestinians everywhere, which makes things maybe in the virtual level more normal. If I use the term of normal, nothing is normal. But this is the situation. I think that as to end and to have the conversation with the people, there is after Trump government or administration, there was a little bit better feeling. It's worldwide. It's not only for Palestinians, but in fact, the Trump policy still exists in the Palestinian situation. Not the same administration, it's a very different administration. And we believe that there is much more possibilities to influence the Biden administration and the Congress and the both houses. But it's still very difficult very far away from getting a support for just peace. In fact, the Israeli steps on the land are accelerated in terms of assassination of the plan of implementing the plan of Trump, and the main goal of the Israeli government is to forbid any kind of Palestinian solution or solution with Palestinians or any kind of Palestinian state. but still there is no pressure from the states to on Israel in this manner. There is speaking in different narrative, but we couldn't see that happened on the ground, in fact, until now. I believe that solidarity movements and people's movements and the human rights organization could make the change. And your work also the same could work the change. So I will stop here. I thank you so much for, I took more time than I expected, but it's Al-Buqay'a DNA. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Ameer, thank you so much. Yes, it's not easy to hear pain and suffering, but I think you're right. This the fruit of such struggle every once in a while shows up in something like Amnesty International report. It's not nothing that Hamas or Fatah can accomplish, but our struggle and the pain and the suffering, obviously the cost of such thing after a long time, way overdue. I mean, I know you participated in the 2001 in South Africa, and Amnesty International closed the door. And actually the hopes were way before 2001. Amnesty International won the Nobel Prize for Peace in the 70s, in the late 70s. And then, South Africa, and then even when Jimmy Carter wrote his book, Peace, Not Apartheid, we thought, hey, here we go. We got a loud voice. And the Israeli lobby right away aggressively shut him down, and until now. So I think the Amnesty International report is so important. And it's, I actually started reading it. It's about almost 300 pages. And I recommend that for every Palestinian, not just non-Palestinian, but especially us. We should read it, because what's important is what you mentioned, is that it included Palestinians as people, as a whole, the 1948, the West Bank and Gaza, the refugees. It doesn't matter where you are as a Palestinian, you are living under apartheid. And that's what's important about it. And I think what's important, as far as I can tell from where I am in the report right now, is that they actually talk about partners in the apartheid, which is the US government. So if you are supporting the apartheid in economic support or military support, just giving the state of Israel weapons and foreign aid, you are sharing the responsibility, and the cost should be sending you to justice, which is to the Hague Tribunal. So hopefully those war criminals, Israelis or Americans, should end up in the Hague Tribunal for justice for actually such thing. So thank you so much. I think we should open this up to more questions. I think maybe I can start with a question, is that we in Dunya have a plan for this year, and one of our shows is going to be on the title is The Return, which is a play that we actually premiered. It's a play written by myself and Ed Mast, premiered in Al Midan, and I think it was the last show that Al Midan performed before Miri Regev, the cultural Israeli minister, closed it. And it talks, I mean, the main character, the Palestinian character, is obviously somebody who spent time in Israeli prison. That's why I'm reminded of you. And then he becomes almost brainwashed by the Israeli system to comply, to not make such noise, to even refuse the word Palestine. I just want to make sure I'm safe. And not even think of Palestine or not think of his destroyed village because he's being watched, just like you mentioned, by the Israeli system. And I'm wondering if you can maybe speak to that, as I think you touched on it, how Israeli citizens, Palestinian citizens within Israel, are being watched on a daily basis as far as what they do, what they think, what I think what you called it privileges, not, and it becomes their lifestyle. So what can they do to make them part of a whole nation, just like in the Amnesty International report made them feel? Because they vote in the Israeli election as part of justifying the democracy that Israel is claiming. Look, we give them the right to vote. They do vote. And there's a group of you, 1948 Palestinians, who boycotts the election and they don't want to vote. So there is a little conflict between those who want to comply and participate in the democratic system, and there's a group that decided, you know what, we've done it for so long, now it's time to quit the game and not vote. So where do you stand on this, or what do you think of this? Those who oppose the election and don't want to play the game, and those who actually know we should participate, we should go in, and we saw the outcome with the Islamic party now that is part of the coalition. That is really the effect of that is just so negative that it's just destroying the life of so many Palestinians.
Yeah, to answer or question by question?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. It's part of our dilemma all the time. It's political dilemma. It's matter of how we will empower ourselves. It's much more than how we will influence the government, in fact, by the votes itself, voting. Because I used to be, when I went to prison, I was arrested. At that time, I boycotted the elections since the year 2000, after the October 2000, when the Israeli 13 people have been killed by the Israeli police, Palestinian people. And I did that position as a position toward Israel, a state that killed its citizens, and we will never be part of the system. And so we should, this was my thinking, political thinking, we should strengthen ourselves in the margins. The margins are important for us. It's not matter of to be marginalized. In the margins of the Israeli policy, in our space, which I can say that, because we have no autonomy, no civil or we don't control our political system. We could influence. And the only power that we have, people power, political power, and protest power, etc. So when I was in prison, one day I was, there were elections, and prisoners are allowed to, citizens of Israel, in fact, to vote for the Knesset. I was sitting, it's called like most of the prison department was from, or the session, it was from Nablus, the majority of the prisoners, which I was with them. And Israel is fragmenting the prisoners as cities today. We can speak about it if you want to hear. But I said that they asked me to go outside to vote. I said no, I boycott. Why? For the officers, it was okay. For prisoners from the West Bank, it was not the same. They asked me why. I told them that it's the same if Netanyahu or Gantz at the time was the counterpower of Netanyahu. They are the same for me. I don't want to play this play. They said, okay, you don't want, but for us, Netanyahu is most dangerous than Gantz in the West Bank because he ignored the Palestinian cause. He just wanted to speak about the relations with the Arab world, with the Gulf countries, but not with the Palestinian cause. But I was influenced by that sentence, although I didn't say change my position because it's I should declare if I want to change my position. I changed my position after prison that I want to take part in the voting in order to support the Palestinian power inside Israel. There are two main streams. One is opposing or anti-Knesset or anti-parliamentary work, which are the Islamic movement of the Sheikh Raed Salah and which are subject also of very tough political persecution of the Israeli state. And the other group, which called Abna al-Balad, they are a lot of people from the young movements, young generation movements, which are opposing taking part in the elections. So I decided to take part in order to make the, at that time there was the Arab list of the whole political parties to strengthen themselves, to give power to the willing of the people, of the community in general. But the matter of that, not to be part of the government, of course, not to be part of the decision-making of Israel, because we don't want to take responsibility about the GNF or about the occupation, about the Israeli wars, and it was about the Israeli war crimes. We are not there. We couldn't be there. We could support our people and be part of our people, not of the Israeli state, which is it's a colonial approach and the colonial essence toward our people. So we are the other political parties like the Communist Party, like the National Democratic Assembly. They are looking to the Knesset as another place or another regard to make our struggle. And it's not only the Knesset, because their major work is on the ground with the community, with the protest activity, which is more influential, in fact, than to be in the Knesset. And it's much more influential than to be in the coalition, what the United Arab List is doing now. So this dilemma, I think, will continue. It will never be disappear, because in one side we have no political decision to have autonomy. We couldn't have that in Israel. And on the other hand, we don't want to be part of the Israeli sphere. We want to keep ourselves as Palestinians, as a community, that we are part of the Palestinian cause. This is what we are pushing to get the acknowledgement, to get the recognition worldwide that we are part of the Palestinian cause, not internal Israeli matter as Oslo Accords impose on Palestinians.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that Amnesty International joined us into one people.
Yeah.
And that's almost somebody else, not us. Coming and say, yeah, you are one people, one nation.
Yeah.
And I think we should answer to that now instead of just keep on separating ourselves. So Ameer, Habibi, it's We started on time, our traditional time to start on time at 11, and we should end on time. Unfortunately, it's a little bit after 12, and we really had you for an hour. I can't believe the time went so fast. So Beth, you wanna just close it? So at least on behalf of everybody who attended, I want to thank you, Ameer, and hopefully we'll see you in the summer. I might be coming to visit.
You're welcome in Haifa.
Yes.
We are both in Buqaya. Yeah.
In Buqaya, yeah. Okay, Beth, take it.
Nice. Yeah, thank you so much. This was a really great event. We're still learning how to do some Zoom things, some of us. Anyway, we really appreciate your time and educating us. I have videotaped this, so we'll be able to show it so people can still get the message, even if they weren't able to be with us today. And we'd also like to invite people to come to our next fundraising event, which is going to happen when? March 15th.
Yes.
Nadia Tumela is gonna be doing a really great Palestinian cooking demonstration for us and teaching us how to cook. So we really appreciate that and hope to see everybody there. Thank you. Hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Welcome. Bye.